Deafrowe with Deafrowe TV, and I'm back again with another review. And this week's review is going to be of a great movie from 1984, at least in my opinion, called Radioactive Dreams. But before I get started on this review, please remember, like, subscribe, and share. Hit that notification bell so you know when I post another video. You never know when I'm going to post one, so please hit that notification bell. And let's get started on this review of the 1984 movie Albert Pune movie, Radioactive Dreams, starring John Stockwell as Philip Chandler, Michael Dudikoff as Marlo Hammer, Michelle Little as Rusty Mars, Lisa Blount as Miles Archer, Don Murray as Dash Hammer, and George Kennedy as Spade Chandler as the main characters. There are other characters in the movie, obviously, but I'm just going to go with the main ones for right now. And as you can see right here, in 1986, the nuclear weapons went off. And there's only one set left, one set of keys, and only one missile left after the nuclear war is over. And the two special keys are required. Whoever possessed the keys would control the most powerful weapon in the post-nuclear world. A weapon which would make the key holder ruler of all the cities in the radioactive wasteland. Enter Marlo. You got Marlo, Philip, Dash, and Spade, which Dash and Spade apparently is like the grandfather or the father of these two kids. And at the very beginning of this movie, they show how like they go off into this cave that has an underground shelter as well. And they hole up in there after all the bombs gone off, and they kind of get caught off guard and have to just like jump in there real quick while they're out camping and prepping and doing whatever they're doing. And then like years later, so like this has happened in 1986, and then they say April 1st, 1986, and then April 1st, 2001 exactly, they finally, Marlo and Phil have been left behind in that shelter by the two older gentlemen and have been there for years trying to get out. And they finally bored a hole through the fallout shelter underneath the cave, and then they bored a hole upwards into the cave to finally make their way out. And that's what they kind of see here is they're getting cleaned up and ready to go out into the outside world because they've never seen the outside world. Well, they have, but it's been like 16, 17 years or whatever since they've seen it. And they're kind of getting ready. They like read all the detective novels. Now they figure themselves to be ace detectives and all this other stuff. One's good at doing magic tricks, the other one's good at dancing and that kind of thing. They each kind of have their own little hobby, and so they kind of help each other grow up in this little shelter or whatever, and they're finally able to get out. And that's when they see it, the nuclear wasteland. Because right at the beginning of the movie, as you can see, when they were going into the cave, there was trees and everything around them and stuff in the black and white film right before it started. And we cut to color finally, and we see the nuclear wasteland for what it is. There's nothing left. And so they take the vehicle that's been stored in the cave and finally get out and start exploring. And that's when they first see some of these mutants or whatever. Right here. Let's see if I can catch a good picture of them. Yeah, these mutants right here. Like, ew. Yeah. So they see these mutants trying to catch this good-looking woman or whatever, and they go out there to help her, and she's not really needing the help really. She's just she's looking for she's got the nuclear keys, and she's trying to take them back to where she can rule over the city. So she basically made her way out there to find those keys where that car was sitting inside the cave, and they just happened to break out about the same time that she found the keys in there. Apparently, that's how this movie works. So, yeah. So they promised to take her to a phone booth to call for help and all this. So they do that. Apparently, the phone booths still work. 2001, the nuclear apocalypse. The phone booths still work though. And about this time, she takes off and leaves them behind, but she accidentally drops the keys in the car as she's leaving and didn't realize it. And then as she leaves them to the mutants coming up on the dirt bikes and stuff, she thinks she's getting away with the keys scot-free when she's not. And of course, the Marlo and Phil have to jump in the car and take off, get away from these mutant ladies on motorbikes. And of course, I mean, they don't have hair. They got these red wigs on, and they're just crazy looking Mad Max looking stuff here. I mean, it's pretty fun. And of course, they finally get away, and then they come up on these two kids that look like they're dressed up like Elvis, and the kids are acting like they're in need of help or whatever, and they try to punk them into giving up the vehicle's gas, whatever. And the kids finally just like start cutting them out and hold them at gunpoint, and then Marlo and Phil take the guns away from them, like, yeah, you ain't gonna do that. So they get away, but the kids that were dressed up like Elvis or whatever did shoot they shot up all the people that were in the van, and then they had Rusty, which is the girl that they saved from the two kids, in the van ready to be shot too. But in the which is her right here. And then the two kids shot the tank on their car, so they ran out of gas in their car. So now they have to walk all into to the city finally. And of course, they got Rusty Mars is her name. She's kind of sweet on Phil right here, and they're walking into town. She's like, "We got to get in here before it gets dark or whatever. You don't want to be out here when it's dark." And so they finally make it into town, and they seeing all this stuff going on, and Marlo being the more naive of the two, he's kind of like thinking everybody is his friend there, and kind of taking in everything as much as possible, but he just falling for every trick in the book. And Phil, being more reserved, is trying to stay back and kind of like watch things as they happen and not just jump in on everything. But he's taken in by Rusty here, and Rusty, does have a crush on him, and he has a crush on her, so she kind of takes advantage of him at this point, takes him down to the cellar, and acts like they're going to do something. And it doesn't end up being that, but it ends up she set him up to be chained to a table by some cannibals. And as she's walking away, she's like, I can't do this. I can't do this. She had to deal with these cannibals to bring them some fresh meat or whatever. And yeah, that's all kinds of messed up. Anyway, she somehow convinces him to let him go because she knows that he has the key in his wallet. And she's like, you might not want to cut him up just yet for meat until you get that key away from him or whatever. And so he pulls like a little magic trick and tries to show him where the key is. And he pulls the key out right here. He pulls the key out and then immediately proceeds to punch him in the face with the key and try to make an escape. So she's like trying to somewhat give him a chance, but at the same time she's like, trying to make. So he makes his way out. He finds Marlo, gets Marlo, and gets him out of there. They get a little help from this other guy who they thought was, going to be another friend, but it ends up what they find out is all the gangs in that area, including with the one that this guy belongs to, they're all trying to catch those two because they had the key to the nuclear weapon. And so he ends up not being their friend either, and he gets, shot, obviously. And of course, the cannibals coming after him too at the same time. And of course, Rusty Mars is coming after him as well, trying to catch him. And, things are not just going their way. Anyway, so they finally get out of that building where the cannibals are trying to eat them and stuff. And I think Rusty Mars actually stabs the main cannibal dude because she just doesn't like him. She just doesn't agree with the whole thing, and finally changes her mind and tries to be good to some degree. And Marlo's like stuck in this alleyway or whatever, and this big old mutant rat thing comes up out of the sewer right here, scares the shit out of him, and goes back in. But then as soon as that thing goes back in, there's like a couple bounty hunters that show up to try to get him. Try to see if I can get this right. Yeah, so yeah, a couple bounty hunters try to get him, and all of a sudden the rat comes back up again. This ginormous thing just comes up. It's like, I'm gonna eat you now. And of course, they don't stand a chance. It's kind of funny. He spots Phil being dragged by a little golf cart looking thing by the two Elvis looking kids, and so then he's trying to find. At this point he's trying to find Phil because they kind of got split up, and wandering through town, and he finally finds Phil, and it's what's her face that they met at the very beginning has Phil in the back of the cart. It's Miles Archer, which is the other girl that took off on him in the very beginning. She's got him on a cart. She's like, I'll take you to wherever you need to go. I'll help you out. Like she's acting like she's going to help him out or whatever. And when she's not really, she's just trying to use him to get to the keys. And they don't really know what the keys are for at this point. And so that's where you see Miles Archer here. She's like, I'm just going to go change into something more comfortable. Because Marlo thinks she has a crush on him. And so she's like playing it off. And then that's when they finally figure out they find like this handbook in Miles Archer possession explaining what the keys they have do. And then that's when they finally figure out like we can't let these people get this key. It's too much power for these bad people to have or whatever. And so they try to make their escape from Miles Archer as well. And then they're so pissed off they've been crossed like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times at this point that both of them are just mad as hell and just want to take down the whole world at this point. And they find some new digs, some new clothes, and they decide they're going to put them on and then they're going to fight. They're tired of being messed around with or whatever. So they put the new clothes on. They get a new gun that actually has bullets this time. Because when they first got that gun at the very beginning that they found in the car, it didn't have any bullets to go with it. They finally got their gun with bullets in it this time. Anyway, they dress back up. And of course, the two Elvis kids, that's what I call them. What is it else to call them? They catch up with Rusty Mars and like we're holding her at gunpoint, trying to tell her to give up where old dude is. And of course, they're knocking her upside the head, holding a gun to her. So you're gonna die, and then yeah, this happens. So yeah, as they're doing that, that's when Phil and Marlo walk up behind them, and they go like, "What you doing?" Like, bam. And that's when Marlo shoots the gun and knocks the gun out of their hand. And then this kind of an awesome scene right here, to be honest with you. I like this one scene where she sees that Phil and Marlo are back on their A game and ready to take these folks on, and she's all smiles now because she thinks she's being saved. And then realizes that Phil's not really there to save her. He just he's like, he didn't want to see her get killed, but at the same time, he didn't like being double crossed by her. And she's trying to explain that she takes back everything she did and all this other stuff. I'm just trying to survive in this world. I didn't really want to do that to you. And I took it all back. I even saved you again or whatever. And he's like, I don't care, whatever, all this other stuff. And then, of course, now Miles Archer has caught up with them. She's chasing them down into this warehouse. And in the warehouse is where they finally all meet. Miles Archer, all the gangs meet up in this warehouse because they're all chasing after Phil and Marlo. And then, of course, they get cut up. And then the two bad guys finally show up with freaking grenade launchers and shit. And they're like, give me our keys. These are my keys. I want, we're the ones that should control this. And then, of course, they're like wearing like these lizard masks of some sort, which is odd to begin with. And then come to find out, the two guys, the two men, they do like a little flashback of why they left those two kids there, because there wasn't, they didn't think they could do much for them or whatever. They had to learn on their own. There's enough food and everything for them to live off of. So they left the two kids there to fend for themselves, but they had to go out on their own and actually try to do something about what's going on in the world. I guess they don't really give a definite reason why they left those two kids there. They kind of leave that up to the imagination. Anyway, that's when you find out who the two masked dudes are, or they're basically Dash and Spade, which are which they call Pops in this movie, as you can see here. So they basically play like these two evil characters to keep people under control and keep a sense of civility with the keys or whatever. But then they realize who Marlowe and Phil. They realize it's Phil and Marlowe from the shelter. Then they decide to use the grenade launchers to help Phil and Marlowe out and to escape with the keys. And Phil and Marlowe, they do somewhat end up winning out, but not without repercussions, because the last person standing is Phil, Marlowe, and Miles Archer. And Miles Archer doesn't think Marlowe's going to shoot her because he has such a crush on her and all this other stuff. And he's just like standing there like, don't do it, don't do it, please don't make me shoot. And of course she's playing a game with it. It's like, don't you pulling at his heartstrings and everything. You don't play them type of games with a dude that's never been with a woman before, especially been in a hole for 16, 17, 18 years, whatever. And she's just playing that game like she's going to win this battle, whatever. And of course, right at the last second here, she's like, she doesn't think he could do it. And then, of course, she tries to do one on over him. And here we go. Thanks for the key. She has like she's going to walk away. But then she does it. And he shoots her. Boom, dead. So they shoot her. She's got the key. They get the key back. And that's pretty much the end of that whole story of them having the key or whatever. And they see that, that he asks his old man, like, why'd you do it? Why, like, who are we? And all this other stuff. And the old man's just like, just go live your life, kid. Don't worry about the past. All this other stuff. And he's like, the old man kind of like letting him live and let live. Just go on and do your own thing. And they got the key now, and all these people that are outside the warehouse see that they're the only two that leave all that chaos that was going inside the warehouse, and everybody's like just spreading out like, ooh, Phil and Marlowe. And they have the nuclear key too, so they also have the power. And they tell you towards the end that they're in this whole, and they do like this whole song and dance at the end, just trying to make it a happy ending for themselves, and basically try to make their own way. It's just so weird. But anyway, I mean, it's still a really entertaining movie in my opinion. One that I probably watched way too many times, and just because there's so many crazy things that happen in it, and the music is very good in this movie. That's one thing that Albert Pune was very in tune with was the music. And he liked to reference other movies that he did in other movies. So, like, if you watch another movie that he did, I want to say it was 1987, Vicious Lips. The bar that the band in Vicious Lips sings in is called the Radioactive Dream, which refers to this movie, Radioactive Dreams. And I think that's kind of cool how he does a callback to other movies that he did. So yeah, I mean, I've always been a big fan of his, even though his stuff was always kind of weird. He did Cyborg with Van Damme. He did in 1992 Captain America, as just an example. And of course, he did this movie from 1984, Radioactive Dreams, which I will give a solid. I have to give it a solid 3.5, almost a 4 for rewatchability, but I'm gonna stick with a 3.5. But it's a it's a great fun movie. I mean, and that's really what you want. You want entertainment. This is a good movie to watch. I hate that it's so hard to find. Like I said, I have a VHS copy. I wish somebody would touch this movie up and do a you know upgraded Blu-ray release of this movie, because I would buy it in a heartbeat. I love this movie. I mean, so yeah, towards the end of the movie, Phil is commentating the end of the movie. Well, he commentates throughout the whole movie, but towards the end, he kind of tells you uh, like what's happening, like what they decide to do at the end. They basically decide to go take a vacation. They hide the keys, and then Phil also decides, oh, I might go try to find Rusty Mars again and give her another chance. Towards the end of the movie, he's like, why not? You only got one life. You might as well, there's somebody that actually likes you. So he tells you at the end of the movie that's kind of what they're going to do. So yeah, overall, like I said, 3.5 in my book out of 5 stars. I mean, you check out my score on Critic List when I put that score out there in relation to a percentage as a 3.5 for me. And I think that'll do it for my review. That's Deafrowe. Have another end of another review. Deafrowe out.